600, and Ghana was still at 2.9. And we also did not increase because we intended to open the season early in August, and of course announce a new producer price. So once again, by virtue of the analysis I was making earlier, our 3.1 is now almost 4.1. So in dollar terms, by virtue of the performance of the CD, our producer price is moved to 4.1 from 3.1 in dollar terms, and Cote d'Ivoire is 3.6. So 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, Cote d'Ivoire was paying about $500 more than Ghana. But today in dollar terms, by virtue of the...
We're paying more.
Yes, by virtue of the strength of the CD, we're paying 4.1. So the cocoa that I purchased today, it will cost me almost 4,100, 4,000 and change to be able to buy a ton.
I see. So as of now, we are performing better than Ivory Coast.
In dollar terms.
In dollar terms.
Yes, because of the CD.
The reason I asked for how our pricing relates with Ivory Coast is because then it has been fingered for why farmers would prefer to smuggle their cocoa beans out.
Yes, so the truth is that research and data shows that when the gap between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire is not above the $400 mark, there's no incentive to smuggle. And we have the Ghana Cote d'Ivoire or Cote d'Ivoire Ghana Cocoa Initiative, and both countries collaborate on a lot of things, including pricing. And that is how come both countries were able to get the living income differentials of $400 per ton for our cocoa farmers. And so we collaborate a lot on the pricing. So for example, Cote d'Ivoire was in touch with me. They had hinted me about their decision to increase, and they were in touch with me when they were ready to increase. I got to know before they announced that increase so that we could also prepare. So we knew that their increase was going to be about $500 more at the time. But we had also done our permutations. What is the quantity of light crop that we're expecting before the season ends, when we're going to open the season, and doing all those analysis. We also thought that, look, let's just stay the course. And then in August, we announced a new producer price. But of course, you make all those assumptions on the basis of all the data that's available to you. At that time, the CD and the dollar were trading at about 15 point something, or $15 thereabouts. And that's what we were looking at, But a lot has changed in the last 3 weeks, which also changes the dynamics and all that. So even without announcing a new producer price, it now cost me over $4,000 to buy the same ton of cocoa that in 3 weeks earlier I was paying $3,100 for.
Okay, so because of what you have said, I mean, it brings the question of how sustainable COCOABOD's financial model is. What would be your response to that?
Well, I think that once there's discipline, and then once we cut down waste, there's discipline, and we spend really within budgeted limits, we should be fine. I mean, we should be fine. It's just, wanton dissipation and gross mismanagement, which will put COCOABOD in such, a terrible financial situation.
Have you been able to point out some things you cut back on? Again, given the context that in one of the Auditor General's report, he had indicated that administrative costs alone was so much.
So you see, COCOABOD has on its payroll in excess of 10,000 people. Our staff cost is between $160 and $170 million every month. You understand? We're going to do a staff audit to ascertain whether we're all human beings or there are some people from another planet with us. We need to establish that. But of course, if you have to spend about $12 million as your staff cost, that's quite, heavy, and we need to look at all those things. But there were decisions that were made that we need to look at. But a lot has to do with procurement, for example. Look at the things that I've told you about. The jute sacks situation, for example. How on earth do you continue on a yearly basis, spend over $40 million on sacks that you don't need? The sacks come in, you're unable to clear them, or you willfully decide not to clear them, and yet you keep procuring to the extent that even when over a 3-year period you are not cleared 110,000 bills, you still go and sign a contract for 80,000 more bills, and in December of 2024, issue an irrevocable letter of credit for $48 million. I mean, what kind of thing is that? And I'm very mindful of the adjectives I use to describe some of these things. If you look at the agrochemicals, I'm sure that you saw one of the videos where I was very angry on the tour where I went the cocoa pit. I mean, you don't need the kind of cocoa pit that you have procured. Perhaps COCOABOD will not need that for the next 10 years. You know, so why do you do those things? If you have all these agrochemicals, over 200 containers at the ports, they have not cleared for 2-3 years. Shipping lines have blacklisted COCOABOD. They have blacklisted our suppliers. One of the key meetings I had to do upon assumption of office was to meet these shipping lines, to explain the issues to them and to tell them how we intend to deal with these issues and not let these things recur, so that they can take the suppliers and ourselves off the blacklist and we can continue to do business. Because some of the suppliers had petitioned my office on assumption of office and attached some of these emails from the shipping lines and all that.
Right.
You know, so if you look at all these things, if you can have over 200 containers at the ports that you've not cleared, and yet your business is going on, what does that suggest? It suggests that you probably didn't need those things. Because how can you have key inputs uncleared for 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, and yet you are into production? What does that tell you about the kind of procurements that were made?
I mean, so how are you dealing differently with the need for the jute?
So, like I said, the NIB is conducting an investigation.
Okay.
I've also asked for an investigation at the stores.
Okay.
We need to establish, first of all, our documents show that these are the juice sacks that we have imported. The document shows what we have received at our stores. The document shows what remain uncleared that we have not received. Now we have to ascertain what is actually at the port. Do we still have the over 110,000 juice sacks at the port? So that investigation will tell us what exactly is there. The audit of the stores will also tell us whether the 70-something thousand that the books say are the stores are there. That is what will then tell us what we actually have. And therefore, what our procurement with respect to juice sacks should be. Is it the case that we have all this and therefore maybe in the next 5 years or 6 years we won't need to import any more juice sacks? Or is it the case that these juice sacks are not at the ports and probably not at the stores? And therefore we'll get to see what actually we have. And on the basis of what our needs are, we would look at that and do the procurement. Because the truth of the matter is that if I have 94,000 bills of sacks in my stores and I need just 50,000, why will I go and procure 75,000? And when I've built my stocks to over 100,000, I still go and procure 75,000. And when I've built my stocks further, I go and procure another 56,000. And when I have not cleared over 110,000 bills, I also go and procure another 80,000 and pay $48 million. How can anybody run an organization like this?
Right. So it looks like there's some work to be done there. But, you know, the question I was asking about financial sustainability is, you know, while we see the futures of cocoa price look good, we already mortgaged our cocoa beans. How are we making money directly from the market?
So you see, the sad part is that from 23 to 24, 25 season, the cocoa prices have shot up. Yet the Ghanaian farmer is unable to benefit from that because of the rollover.
Yeah.
Because of the rollover of 333,767 tons. So we're using cocoa that is supposed to be for $6,600 to service cocoa that was sold at $2,600. And that's that $4,000 drop. So even if $2,500 of this was going to the farmer would be happy. That would be more money for the farmer. By virtue of that decision that was taken in 23-24, which resulted in this rollover, the farmer is unable to benefit from this. COCOABOD itself is unable to benefit from this. Because, look, COCOABOD's infrastructure all across the country is in a deplorable state. From the head office to district offices and warehouses, everywhere I go to.
Even after spending the $12 million on administrative costs?
Everywhere I go to. Kevin, I'll invite you to the head office of COCOABOD. Everywhere I go to, deplorable situations, warehouses that are leaking and all that, you know. And the first day I reported at Cocoa House and I was at the boardroom, the directors were sitting there. The question I asked them was, hey, so you guys, you can award 21 billion cedis worth of contracts for cocoa roads, and you are still in this building. You know, so the issue of priorities, the issue of prudent management, the issue of cutting waste, the issue of only procuring what we actually need on the basis of stock levels and analysis and all that, completely missing. Look, COCOABOD had a turnaround strategy, yet we never implemented it. Under the turnaround strategy, COCOABOD, and this was in 2023, COCOABOD was supposed to rationalize the cocoa roads and reduce its exposure from 21 billion to 6.6 billion. I arrive at COCOABOD. I go for an off-site meeting. All departments come and do your presentations. It gets to the roads, and I find 21 billion. And I'm like, But I thought that under the IMF program, you were supposed to rationalize and bring it to 6.6 billion. I say yes. But that was the desktop analysis. We have not gone to the field to go and actualize it for 2 years. I asked why. He said, oh, we needed to take the consultants there, but we owe the consultants. So I said, who are the consultants and how much do you owe them? So it's feeder roads and highways. We owe highways 120 million. We owe feeder roads 80 million cities. So how much did you need to give them in order for them to go with you to the field to do this work, actualize the work? So if we gave highways 30 million and gave feeder roads 20 million, that would have been enough. So my question to them was that, so you needed to spend 50 million cedis to engage in an exercise that would take 15 billion cedis off your books. And for 2 years, this is your own turnaround strategy. For 2 years, because of 50 million cedis, you did not engage in this exercise that would take 15 billion cedis off your books. Look, in the last 3 weeks, I've had a meeting with my brother, the Honorable Agboja, Minister for Roads. We put together a joint team from the Ministry of Roads and COCOABOD. This team has gone around the same work that has not been done for 2 years. They've done it last week. They presented a report to me.
I see. Which roads are we looking at here?
Well, lots. They're quite a lot.
Okay.
They're quite a lot.
I see.
Yes.
And how were they able to do this in 2 weeks when for years they hadn't done it?
The same money that they could not pay in 2 years. At the time that we were issuing irrevocable letters of credit for juice sacks, $48 million, $45 million, and we couldn't do this 50 million. It's the same money that we have been able to find for this team to go out there and do this work in 3 weeks.
I see. Now, again, I remember reading a Reuters report that had, an interview with the president, John Dramani Mahama, and he appeared to question why COCOABOD was a profit-making business, that he thought that there needed to be reform so that COCOABOD remains a regulator. Now, the likes of Ishmael Yamson have also questioned whether or not, perhaps COCOABOD has outlived its usefulness. Why must COCOABOD be in the fray of pricing? Why won't we liberalize the markets like is done in Nigeria?
Okay. Even Nigeria are looking at reforming what they have.
Oh, but they don't want to include the pricing.
No, I'm saying that even they are looking at reform. Look, Cote d'Ivoire went the way of Nigeria. Now they are doing a hybrid. The truth of the matter is that if you put COCOABOD in the state that it is today, people will question the relevance. People will question the essence. Because if you take such decisions that run down the company, that makes sure that farmers do not get a decent return for what they do, people will obviously question the relevance of the institution. I hope you understand what I'm saying. But if we're running the institution very well, and the farmers were getting good value for what they're doing, because you see, apart from acquisition of land, what people don't even know, apart from the acquisition of land, COCOABOD is responsible for everything along the value chain. Even testing for the suitability of the land, whether it is suitable for cocoa. It is CRIC, the Cocoa Research Institute at Tafo.
Right.
They will do that. So even when you have your land. So the only thing COCOABOD doesn't do is acquisition of land. But testing the land for its suitability for cocoa production is COCOABOD through CRIC. SPD, which is the seed production division, is the one that is responsible for nurturing the seedlings that are given to the farmers they are not sold, that are planted. All those, and Krieg is responsible for all the research that is bringing about varieties. Today we have varieties that fruit within 18 to 24 months. So you don't have to wait for all those long years before the cocoa that is planted begins to fruit. So the SPD provides that. Then you have the Cocoa Health and Extension Division, CHED, which provides the extension services and everything along the line for the farmers. You know, then you have quality control that deals with the grading and sealing of the cocoa. Then you have the cocoa marketing company that actually does the trading of the cocoa. So along the value chain, the entire value chain, with the exception of land acquisition, COCOABOD does all these things, even the haulage. The farmers don't pay for the haulage from the farm gates to the takeover centers and to the ports. All these costs are not borne by the farmer. All these costs are not borne by the farmer. All these are services that COCOABOD provides. But like I said, if you run the company the way it's being run with these repercussions, obviously people will question the relevance. Why would you want to tolerate a company that does this, that ensures that by its own actions farmers don't get value? So it is our responsibility to first of all turn things around. Why will you have a turnaround strategy and not implement it? You have produced a turnaround strategy by yourself and you do not implement it.
Right.
What was the intention of having the turnaround strategy?
But I mean, but if you think about it, perhaps if we have a hybrid system where yes, COCOABOD provides those services, gets money for those services, but it does not deal or meddle in pricing, maybe the farmers will be more enthused about increasing production for us, which is something we also suffer from.
Well, COCOABOD's problem is not about wrong pricing. It's not about wrong pricing. You know.
No, but you meddle it. You see, COCOABOD is the middleman between the market and the world price.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so that's what I mean by you meddle in the prices, right?
Yes.
Even though you don't set the price, but you set it for the farmer.
Yes.
And then you go on the world market and sell.
Yes.
Then the difference goes to COCOABOD.
Yes.
Right.
So
assuming you know the money was not messed up.
The difference is the cost. It costs COCOABOD to have Krieg do the work it does, the research and all the work it does, the testing of the soil, all the research it does, the coming up with the new varieties and all that. We have 45 scientists at Krieg working day and night. It costs money for the seed production division, all the nurseries and everything in the 7 cocoa regions. It costs COCOABOD money to actually produce these seedlings. It costs COCOABOD money for the extension services and technical services that the Cocoa Health and Extension Division does. It costs COCOABOD money for the quality company, the sealing and grading and all that. It costs money. It costs money for the CMC job in marketing the cocoa. So all of this is why you don't give the 100% of the FOB to the farmer. Because if you're giving all these insecticides, fungicides, fertilizers, improved seedlings and all that to the farmer, all this is cost. You buy the fertilizer, you buy all these things. It's at the cost. And the cost obviously must be taken out of the revenue of the cocoa. Currently, 40% of our farmlands are ravaged by CSSVD. That's the cocoa swollen shoot virus disease. And the only way of dealing with this is by rehabilitating the farm. So you cut down the trees and rehabilitate them. And it costs quite a lot. And we need to do a lot about this to at least bring these farmlands into production. The last time I checked, the estimates suggest that we'll need between $1.2 and $1.5 billion to be able to do this. We had an opportunity in 2018 when we took an AFDB facility, you know, to bring into production 156,000 hectares of both diseased and moribund farms. Now, we got $223 million to rehabilitate these 156,000 hectares. And there was a component of $40 million for irrigation. Now, I got into office only to find out that COCOABOD went back. This was laid before Parliament, the AFDB. It was actually a $600 million facility. But there were other components we didn't draw down, like there was a part for processing and warehousing. Those were not drawn down. But the ones that were drawn down, COCOABOD went back and renegotiated the component for irrigation and added that 40 million to the rehabilitation of 223 million. So making 263 million. So originally, we were supposed to spend 223 million to rehabilitate 156,000 hectares.
Right.
Now, this rehabilitation, if we had seen it through, would have added a minimum of 156,000 tons to our production, because the minimum a hectare gives you is 1 ton. Okay. So we had $223 million to do 156,000 tons. Then we went to renegotiate to add the 40 million meant for irrigation to the rehabilitation. But the rehabilitation figure remained 156,000 tons. I was shocked to find out when I assumed office that we had spent this $263 million. And we had gone into COCOABOD's coffers and spent another 700 million cedis. Yet, we had only fully completed and handed over 40,000 hectares.
Only 40,000?
Only 40,000 hectares had been completed and handed over to the farmer by the previous administration. And they have spent the 223 million plus the 40 million meant for irrigation plus another 700 million cedis from COCOABOD's coffers. And what had been handed over to the farmer or to the farmers was 40,000 hectares instead of 156,000 hectares, with another 21,000 hectares partially done. So I have now asked my team to re-engage the contractors to find out, because some money has been spent on them already. So to find out how much we need to spend more to be able to fully rehabilitate these 21,000 and add them to production.
No, but what is the reason you are being given for spending that much and still not being able to deliver?
Nobody has given me any sensible reason. The thing is that they did it, like I'm saying, it was COCOABOD itself that prepared the thing, went for the facility, placed it before Parliament. The components for the rehabilitation, if you combine both the disease, the moribund, was 223 million. 40 million for irrigation. We went back, renegotiated for it to be added to the rehabilitation. So rehabilitation now became $263 million. That money has been spent. Another 700 million, so 700 million cedis of COCOABOD's money has been also spent on this rehabilitation. Yet, what has been done and handed over to the farmers, 40,000. Another 21,000 partially done. And we're supposed to have done 156,000 hectares, which would then have brought at least 156,000 tons added to our production. So that is how we have bungled this. So there's a new one. It actually started before I assumed office, a pilot with the World Bank. And I'm so focused on this one. It's a pilot, 21,000 hectares in 3 districts, 2 in the western and 1 in the eastern regions, just to make sure that this is extremely successful, so that we can do it on a very large scale, because we need to bring all these farms into production if we want to increase production. Now, yes.
How are we going to get value for the $263 million that we spent? You know, the COCOABOD money is always large to mention. How are we going to ensure that that money we spent actually brings us value? Because 40,000 hectares
so yes,
isn't what we had planned for.
Yes. So I leave that to the relevant agencies to do their work, whilst I focus on what should be done, and let the relevant agencies go ahead and do their work. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
But I mean, and it hurts me, because can you imagine what an additional 116,000 tons will do to our production levels? You know, so the rehabilitation we need to do, we need to deal with this CSSVD ravaged farms. Then you have the situation of the 200,000 that the finance minister announced, which has been done in collaboration with the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Like I said, the only thing COCOABOD does not do is land acquisition. So once these lands are, and this is for plantation farming, because you see, the thing with Ghana is that our farms are 90% smallholder farms. And that's the difference between Ghana and Nigeria, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. So the yields per hectare or acre are actually 3 times with the plantations as against us. So same size of land, the yields are 3 times with respect to the plantations.
Right.
So it is not necessarily the farm lands, but it's the kind of agronomic practices and whether they are smallholder or they are plantation farms. So these 200,000 are specifically 200,000 hectares are specifically for plantation farming.
Okay.
And that is what we are waiting for. Once that is done, we kick in. So Craig will go do the testing. Once it's suitable for
what
cocoa.
are the timelines for that one?
Well, we're waiting on the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Okay. They are working on that. So once they give us the green light, then we are on. Then Dr. Tukuno's team, also at the presidency, they have had meetings with us. They are also looking at the component of youth in cocoa farming. And if you look at the age profile of our cocoa farmers, it's quite worrying. We need to try and get a lot more younger people interested in cocoa farming. So they are also looking at the acquisition of these land banks, starting from somewhere in the Oti region, which is also very suitable for cocoa. So we're also waiting. Once they are done, we also kick in and then make sure that this youth in cocoa also comes up and we bring a lot more. There are private individuals and organizations that have also approached us, some around our front plains, who also intend to go into serious plantation farming. Right. And we are working together with them, with our researchers and everything, to ensure that we'll be able to also deal with all the issues that are there and bring these farms into production.